How well do you understand native English speakers outside of the classroom in the real world on TV, movies, and YouTube? Well, let's find out because in this lesson, I'm going to test your listening skills of fast English. Welcome back to J for Is English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started. Here's how this lesson will work. First, I'm going to say a sentence 3 times and I'm going to say it at a natural pace. You need to write down exactly what you hear in the comments. After, I'll explain what I said and I'll explain the pronunciation changes and the advanced expressions and vocabulary that I used. Let's start your first listening test. I'll say it 3 times. Parking downtown is such a pain. Parking downtown is such a pain. Parking downtown is such a pain. I said parking downtown is such a pain. First, let's talk about the pronunciation changes. Let's talk about is such a. Native speakers, we often combine our words together, which makes it sound like we're speaking really fast. So I have is such a, and I can combine those together. Is such a, is such a, is such a, is such a, is such a pain, is such a pain, is such a pain. What does it mean to describe something as a pain? We have a great expression in English, to be a pain in the neck. In the neck. And this simply means that something is very annoying. In this expression, most native speakers will leave out in the neck and just describe something as a pain. And then you can emphasize that by saying such a pain, which makes it sound stronger. So in this sentence, I'm saying that parking downtown is very annoying. Now, we also use this to be a pain. We use this frequently to describe people, to say that someone is very annoying. Maybe a coworker, maybe a relative, maybe a friend, a classmate, a roommate. So let's listen to these clips and notice how all of these clips are with someone is a pain.
Stepmom is such a pain.
Men are such a pain.
Marcy's such a pain. She's so selfish.
Now you might be thinking that studying English is such a pain, but hopefully my videos help you take the annoyance, the frustration out of it and make it more enjoyable. If you think that, then put pain-free in the comments. Put pain-free if you think that learning English with me is not a pain. Pain-free, put that in the comments. Let's try this again. I'll say it 3 times. We had a blast last night. We had a blast last night. We had a blast last night. Did you get this one? I said, we had a blast last night. Notice how had a sounds like one word. Hadda, hadda, we hadda, we hadda. And notice how blast and last, you don't hear the T in them. Blast last night. But you hear the T in night. Because at the end of a sentence, I'm going to take a pause naturally. So I can pronounce the T because it forces me to take a pause, but I'm already taking a pause because there's a period. But in the sentence, if a word ends on T, we often don't pronounce it to avoid having to take that pause. So instead of blast last night, I can say blast last night and either pronounce it very softly or just not at all. What does this mean? Well, a blast, that means you had an enjoyable, exciting time. So it's another way of saying you had a great time. We had a blast at the party. We had a great time at the party. If someone asks you, how was the party or any event, you can say, it was a blast, to be a blast, and you're describing the party as a blast. It was a blast. Or you can say, we had a blast. So you can use this as to be a blast or to have a blast.
Oh yeah, had a blast.
Could have had a blast on the Riviera.
So you really had a good time, huh?
Yeah, we had a blast.
Let's try another listening exercise. I'll say it 3 times. Thanks for the invite. Thanks for the invite. Thanks for the invite. I said, thanks for the invite. For pronunciation, notice that for is an unstressed for. Thanks for, thanks for, thanks for the invite, thanks for the invite. And notice how invite, the stress is on in. That's the stress syllable. Dada, invite, invite. Thanks for the invite. And that's because in this case, invite is a noun. And that's why the stress is on the first syllable. Invite is short form for invitation. Of course, you know the noun invitation. Native speakers, we commonly reduce this to invite. But of course, the verb form to invite already exists. But notice for the verb, the stressed syllable is the second syllable. Da-da, invite, invite. That's the verb. Invite, invite, that's the noun. This isn't an official noun, it's simply the short form of the word invitation, but native speakers love using it. Let's compare these 2 sentences, one with the verb and one with the noun. Thanks for inviting me. Thanks for the invite. Both are commonly used by native speakers.
Oh, thanks for inviting me.
But thank you for the invite.
Thanks for the invite, by the way.
Let's try one more listening test. I'll say it 3 times. You got all worked up for nothing. You got all worked up for nothing. You got all worked up for nothing. Did you get this one? I said, you got all worked up for nothing. Notice how got all, the T is between 2 vowels, so I'll pronounce this as a very soft D, but I have to combine them together. So you're going to hear the D on both sounds. Got all, got all, got all, got all worked up. The past simple pronunciation is worked. Notice that T, worked. But when I combine it with worked up, I'm going to link these together and you're going to hear that T in front of up. Worked up, worked up. For nothing, we already talked about for, an unstressed fur. And notice how I dropped that G sound at the end of nothing and I said nothing, for nothing, for nothing. This isn't a requirement. I could say for nothing, and I commonly do. I use both equally, for nothing, for nothing. Now let's talk about what this means. To get or be worked up. This is when you're either very upset or very excited about something. So it could be for a negative emotion or a positive emotion, but it's important that it's a strong negative or positive emotion. And for nothing, this means for no reason. So you became very upset or you became very excited for no reason, for nothing. Let's talk about the more negative emotion. Let's say you heard a rumor at your company that they were going to fire everyone because the company was going bankrupt. And you get all worked up. You get really angry and upset and you have this strong emotion. But I tell you that you shouldn't listen to a rumor that it's probably nothing, and then you find out that in fact the company is not in financial trouble. So then I could say, see, I told you, you got all worked up for nothing. Now let's do an imitation exercise so you can practice these pronunciation changes and you can practice speaking at a faster pace. I'm going to say each sentence again 3 times, and I want you to repeat each sentence out loud and imitate my pronunciation as closely as possible. Let's start this now. Here's the first sentence. Parking downtown is such a pain. Parking downtown is such a pain. Parking downtown is such a pain. We had a blast last night. We had a blast last night. We had a blast last night. Thanks for the invite. Thanks for the invite. Thanks for the invite. You got all worked up for nothing. You got all worked up for nothing. You got all worked up for nothing. So did you enjoy this lesson? Do you want me to make more lessons just like this? If you do, then put had a blast in the comments so I know you had a blast, which means you had an enjoyable time, you had an exciting time. Put had a blast in the comments. And of course, make sure you like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And why don't you keep improving your listening skills with this video right now?